It's time to bring out the BetterWorldian in all of us. Welcome to BetterWorldians Radio with your hosts, Ray, Mary Sue, and Gregory Hansel. BetterWorldians Radio inspires you with the people and ideas that are making the world a better place. You'll hear how small acts can make a big difference every day. Now, here are Ray, Mary Sue, and Gregory.
Hi, welcome to BetterWorldians Radio. BetterWorldians Radio is a weekly broadcast whose mission is to uplift and inspire you to make the world a better place. I'm Ray Hansel, joined today by my co-host, Mary Sue Hansel. BetterWorldians Radio is brought to you by BetterWorldians Foundation and is co-hosted by the family team that created the popular social game on Facebook called A Better World. It rewards players for doing good deeds while helping to raise money and awareness for charities. To date, over 40 million good deeds have been done in A Better World by more than 4 million people in over 100 countries. Joining us today on BetterWorldians Radio is Georgie Smith, co-founder of A Sense of Home, a nonprofit that transforms the lives of former foster youth by helping them create their first ever homes. Georgie Smith is a filmmaker, chef, and designer with a passion for giving back. Georgie responded to a cry for help from a former foster youth after he saw one of her cooking and design videos on Georgie Smith HOME. Georgie and her co-founder, Melissa Goddard, saw the impact they had on the young man, and so they took the concept of a sense of home to experts in transition-aged foster youth. With that guidance, Georgie and Melissa developed a sense of home into a sustainable program. Today, we're going to talk about that program and what's become of it. Hi, Georgie. Thanks for joining us today on BetterWorldians Radio.
Thank you, Ray and Mary Sue.
You're very welcome. We wanted to talk a little bit about sense of home, and with your partner, Melissa, also, how did it all come about? What inspired you to do this?
Well, as you mentioned in your intro, that a young man named Barry reached out to me, having seen a cooking and design video, and said, could you help me? And I didn't know what that meant, but seeing him in his first ever apartment with his belongings in black garbage bags, I did for him what I would do for my nephew or a friend's child. I just asked everyone I knew for hand-me-down furniture, and we created a home for him. And I saw a radical transformation in him. And I then looked around on the internet for who else was doing this so that I could refer to all of his friends who were now asking me for help. I was wanting to refer them to what I thought would be an existing nonprofit that would be doing this because it seemed so obvious to me. Right. And I was stunned to find that no one was doing it. Yeah. And I thought that it was such a simple way for the community to get involved and to share what they have too much of and to share their time and resources in a way that builds healthier communities. And so I just kept doing it. It just seemed to be the right thing to do, and I just kept doing it. There was just no turning back, really. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And so I continued because no one else was doing it. And I did see that this was a way for the youth that have never, ever felt like they belonged in a home ever in their lives. Right. To create their first home was vital to setting up a foundation from which they could thrive.
What a wonderful inspiration. And, that's an awful lot of our programs about charities like yours. And frequently they kind of step stone into this little by little. And as you say, once you've seen it, you see it. So what are you going to do about that? So what's it like for a young person aging out of the foster care system? What kind of challenges do they face?
Well, they're out on their own. So they don't have family. They don't have community. There's no one for them to turn to. So at 18 or 21, depends on where they are when they're exiting the system, they have been a ward of the state. So they've been in an institution that has done everything for them in a very bureaucratical way, and then they're out fending for themselves. So they're very much without life skills, and they've have extreme trauma that they've overcome, and that they're still dealing with. And they're, imagine what you're like at 18, trying to figure out the world on your own, making your way, trying to get a job, go to college, trying to find a place to live. It's incredibly daunting. So the statistics on them is really astonishing. 50% will become homeless, 50% will become incarcerated, and a very high rate of the girls will be sold into the sex slave trade. It's a very uphill battle for them, so that when they actually achieve getting themselves their first ever apartment, that's why we felt it was so important to celebrate them and to provide absolutely everything that they need, fridges, beds, absolutely everything one needs to set up a home. And the really important aspect of it, it's not the stuff, it's the people showing up, all the volunteers that come with such love to say, you matter, you are worthy, you have made it, let's celebrate you, because they've never had that before. They've never had someone that wasn't paid to show up in their life to say, you matter. So all these strangers showing up gives them hope that they can trust in humanity. It gives them hope for a brighter tomorrow, having overcome enormous odds.
Oh, I can see that. And, the famous philosopher Woody Allen once said 80% of life is just showing up. And it's amazing that these people show up. And I got to believe that such a feeling of, hey, I'm worth something. Look at this. These people don't know me, and they've showed up for me. Look what they've done. So talk to us a little bit about what the process of actually setting up that home is, a little bit more detailed. I mean, how do you
we have an all former foster youth staff. So that is really key to what we do, is that I accidentally came across this, and what I realized was that there isn't an organization for them, run by them, and that was the best possible example for foster youth, is to learn from their peers, because I'm an Australian with a funny accent. I'm white and have had a good education and a loving family. I don't know anything of their experience. So seeing the youth that we've hired, seeing how they are flourishing and come in to create the home is vital. So our team of 7 former foster youth staff run the entire operation. So that means that we collect donated furniture from the Los Angeles area, and then we store it in our warehouse where inventory needs to happen. And then once we are set to create a home, which happens 2 or 3 times a week, we're pulling that inventory and we're staging it in the warehouse according to the trying to create the most inspired home for that particular youth's needs and passions. And then we load it up in the truck, and the team meets volunteers, anywhere from 15 to 30 people, depending on the size of the space. We meet them at the location, and everything is labelled according to the room. So it's colour-coded according to the room. And then the volunteers get colour-coded on their name tags according to the room. And we set out and create the home. And so we unload the truck, we stage it, we clean everything, we make it look beautiful. And that can happen as quickly as 60 minutes because we have such a seamless process. And then the most important part of the home creation is the housewarming. And so we sit in a circle and we share what we want for the future of that individual we've just created a home for. And most importantly, our youth who are our staff are conveying their stories and what it means to them and why they do what they do. And they often do that in spoken word and song, which tends to resonate more deeply. And that's really an intrinsic part of that shift that occurs. It's a very healing process that happens. So they can see this magical thing that's just taken place, but to hear someone that's been through what they've been through and their ability to trust and to grow and to have hope and to have purpose in their life is very, very impactful. So in that moment of being in that really intimate space of home, that's the shift that occurs for them, is that there is an ability to trust that there is a brighter tomorrow.
That's fantastic. Now, how do you find the locations for these home experiences?
So a foster youth is eligible for Section 8, so they get a Section 8 apartment. Sometimes they don't, if they're earning too much money, so they might have a couple of jobs and they might be studying, but that might be too much. They might be earning too much for Section 8, so they would have to get the apartment on their own. So So that is, they achieve that themselves. So we say we'll meet you halfway, we'll meet you 50-50, which is setting up the concept of building healthy relationships, of showing up in a relationship. If you do this, we're going to meet you halfway. So we do not do the Section 8 process for them. It's they achieve that, and then we come in with absolutely everything from toothpaste and shampoo to curtains and floor rugs and dish soap and absolutely everything you can imagine that you need to function. And we give them a week's worth of organic frozen food, everything that they need to begin anew.
That sounds fantastic. So that it really is very comprehensive. Is that pretty much the entire scope, or are there other services that you want to mention on the air?
Well, probably the most important aspect of it is that we are bringing them community. They've never had community.
Okay.
So all of those volunteers that come in then become their community. Now, again, you have to show up in that community. It doesn't just exist. So how they become further immersed in the community is by paying it forward. So once you've had a home created, then you come and create the home for the next youth. So often the youth that begin to pay it forward, they don't stop. So they then find mentors and job opportunities, and we then are able to vouch for their work ethic because we're seeing them in a team environment, a work environment, so we can recommend them for jobs, for careers, for career programs, for educational scholarships. So we connect them to various partner programs, and we are actually going to be beta testing an app that will, it's called Ying, and it's the first ever global time banking app, and it will be where the test case for it, whereby when a foster youth pays it forward, they will get credits for it, and they can then use that for somebody else that's, say, giving a free meditation class or a free yoga class in exchange for that. But they will also be able to get help from people that want to help them with their car, like, just the basic things, like a mechanic. They don't have, an uncle or a family friend that can help them with their car. They usually don't have a good car, or they need help buying a car. They need help with their credit. They've often got terrible credit, so people that can help them with credit, people that can help them with their resume. So we're going to be through an app connecting them to a broader community because we've been doing it manually, and now that we're servicing so many youth, we want to expand that village for everyone that volunteers within the Sense of Home community. They can connect to a youth that establishes what their needs are.
And the app is called Ying?
Ying. It hasn't been launched yet. We're beta testing it next month, but it is something that was being heavily researched at the London School of Economics. So it's it's time crediting. So they do that within small communities, but this will be the first app to enhance that, and those time credits will be able to be used to certain companies, certain merchants will be taking those credits, so you can buy food and groceries with it and things like that.
Is that an acronym, Ying? For
meaning the yin and yang.
Oh, yin and yang. Okay, all right. I thought maybe
that with doing service you should be rewarded for it.
Oh, I see. Okay, very, very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so we should probably get them on your podcast soon.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, we're going to talk more about A Sense of Home in a moment, but right now I'd just like to take a brief break and tell our listeners a bit about our game on Facebook called A Better World. A Better World encourages habits of love and goodness, positive mindsets, and giving to social causes like these that we're highlighting today to make a positive difference in the world. Players actually do things like sending hearts and love, expressing their gratitude, sharing random acts of kindness in the real world, and sending get-well notes to real-world sick children, and so much more. Each month we partner with a different charity, a real-world charity, and challenge our players to do a certain level or number of good deeds within the game. When they do, we release funds directly to that charity partner of the month. We're happy to announce that this month we are partnering with A Sense of Home. When our players reach the do good goal, we will release funds to help create a home for a former foster youth. You can find out more at BetterWorld.com, and please check it out. So now here's my co-host, Mary Sue Hansel.
Thanks, Ray. I'd like to now welcome Yolanda Elam. Yolanda is a former foster youth who now works at a Sense of Home as a program director. Hi, Yolanda. Welcome to BetterWorldians Radio.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, can you tell our listeners a bit about your situation and how you came to a Sense of Home for help?
So I, before I found out about a Sense of Home, I actually was, I had a lot of challenges and struggles. I, was finishing up college and I didn't have a stable place to live. So I was just kind of bouncing all over the place, anywhere between like crashing on friends' couches to sleeping in my car. Okay. And it was a really tough time for me, and I was trying to just make it through college. So finally I was able to save up enough money to get my first like little studio apartment, and it was really small. And I found out about a Sense of Home because literally after I had just got my apartment, I had nothing else to give. And so that's when I came across the Sense of Home for help to see if they could come and bring me furniture and to see how they could best, help me in my journey.
So what did they do? Tell us exactly what happened. It's so interesting.
So yeah, it's funny is because when I thought of a Sense of Home, initially I thought, these are movers, they're going to come and bring me, furniture and leave it.
Yeah.
But, when they came into my little apartment, and it was like maybe about 20 people in this little studio setting everything up for me. Just bringing me everything that I needed down to my bath towels, to kitchen appliances, and just silverware, everything that I needed. And what I always say is that it felt like family for me because I've never really had that where people brought me stuff and I didn't have to pay. There was no expectation there.
Wow.
So I just felt very blessed. And the family part of it was the most significant part for me because that's what really hit deep with me and made me want to get more involved and stay involved with the Sense of Home.
So, Yolanda, did they ask how big the apartment was? I was just wondering how the process went. So they knew the size, or they came and looked first? Or?
Yeah. Well, they asked me plenty of questions, and then also I sent tons of pictures from different angles.
Oh, I see.
And also a list of my needs that, items that I needed. So they had a pretty good idea of everything that I needed, and then also the size of my space. So it's funny because when they brought everything, it fit perfectly. And when I saw it, I was like, that's not going to fit in my apartment. It's going to fit perfectly. So, yeah, it worked out.
Oh, I bet it looked beautiful. Be neat to see a picture. Are there any pictures on Facebook?
There is, but it's such a long time ago when I got mine done. But there should be. It may just be a bit further back because it's been almost about 2 years.
Okay.
Since they've, so it's been quite a bit of time, but if you saw the picture, you would be like, oh my gosh, because it's that amazing.
Well, I did look at all the videos on the website, and it was very interesting. I would recommend our listeners to take a look because it's just a beautiful process to see. Now, Yolanda, you are currently employed by a Sense of Home. What is it like being able to give back? So do you actually work there, or you're a volunteer there?
Well, I started off as volunteering, as paying it forward. So I would come, after they did my home, I would come every weekend that they were doing others' homes. And basically I just kept paying it forward until they hired me on.
Oh,
so
that
now
was
I'm
great.
hired on as the program director.
Now, tell us why you would encourage our listeners to help support a Sense of Home.
Well, I would encourage it, one, because I think it's the right thing to do, and two, because I think that for the foster youth population, we're kind of this invisible population that a lot of people don't know about us or our struggles, and if they do, it's kind of this stigma. And so I would encourage people to get involved and to get knowledge, not only because it's a gift for the youth that they'll be helping, but then it's also a gift for so many people that are part of our community.
Yeah, you're right. I never really gave that thought about foster children that get aged out. And I bet most people don't. So it's wonderful that we can do this show and let people know about it. So thanks so much, Yolanda. I'd like to welcome back Georgie Smith now. Hi, Georgie.
Hey there, how you doing?
Great. I'm curious. I bet your life really changed since founding A Sense of Home. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, yes, my life has done a 180. I had absolutely no idea that I would be, it's just a complete 180. It's not anything that I expected from my life, and I didn't have experience with aged out youth. I had a sense of what was going on with them, but I didn't really fully understand it. So for your listeners that don't understand, it's the youth that are put into the foster system that never get adopted, that they are placed in homes for temporary periods or in group homes, and then at 18 they're out on their own. So I didn't have this understanding of what it was like to be out in the world on your own. And I grew up in such a loving family, such a loving community. I felt like I belonged to so many families because my community was so loving. And I think that now, as I'm on this journey, I am so grateful for my childhood and all of that love that was given to me by so many different families and community members. I'm able to now give to these youth. And, Yolanda mentioned it. It was the way that we showed up without expecting anything. And I think that's what family is, unconditional love, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's what they haven't had. There's always been conditions placed on their arrangements with different agencies that have been serving them, that they must behave this certain way and they'll get this. But this is just like, you've made it, congratulations, here you go. So it's this just beautiful transference of humanity. So the way that it's changed my life is significant on so many levels, but what it mostly gives me is hope in humanity, because every time we're doing a home creation, which could be 3 times a week, we're seeing people come together, complete strangers of all walks of life, who reveal the best version of themselves, the most beautiful, exquisite, loving, non-judgmental, generous, giving, kind, beautiful, creative version of themselves. So I am so inspired, and I often, if we don't do a home creation, I actually kind of come down a little bit, and it's like I'm coming down off a humanitarian high.
I could see what you mean. I'd love to meet some of those people. They sound wonderful.
You should come to a home creation.
I would love to. That sounds great. Now, what have you learned, too, from the young people that you do all this for?
I think it goes back to the experience takes me to a place, the very foundations of human beings, because they've been stripped of so much. I'm getting to the core of what makes us up as human beings. And I recently read by a UCLA, I'm in Los Angeles, so there's a UCLA professor that said that Maslow got it wrong, that as important as water, food, and shelter, human connection is as vital.
Yes.
And that's what I've learned, is that human connection, without that, people are suffering in ways that debilitates the entire community. That unless if people are invested in society and feel a part of society, they're not going to work for society. So I think that I've learned very basic concepts of, it feels really primal. It's like very ancient lessons of why the village worked, why the village functioned. And that is because people come together to work together with a common interest, which is lifting up the community. So I've learned so much, and I kind of don't know how to summarize it in a few minutes, but it's profound. It's taken me back to who we are as human beings and what makes us flourish and thrive. And the youth teach me every day in ways. Their wisdom is immense. I feel like having overcome so much trauma, they can act out in ways that can be of very negative consequences to them, but they also have something that I don't see in other people that is almost magical in their wisdom and insight and the way that they look at the world. They have special gifts that really inspire me every day.
Well, yeah, your story is very moving. As I was saying to Yolanda, I did look at a lot of those videos and saw a lot of people singing their thanks and dancing their thanks, and the joy was just profound. So thanks so much for sharing that. Now, Georgie, my last question, and we do ask this to all our guests every week. How do you believe a sense of home is helping to make the world a better place?
I think that it's an example. If you don't have any connection to foster youth, you might have a connection to home. I think that if people are exposed to the story of a sense of home, they might become more grateful for what they have in terms of home, their family, their community. But it also is a universal story of how the most disenfranchised can become leaders for the change they seek. It's like Yolanda and her comrades in A Sense of Home, her former foster youth. This is their organisation, and that they're helping serve their peers. And by lifting up all of their peers, they're building a healthier community, and they're doing it alongside fellow community members. So I think the example is how to build healthier communities by lifting up the most disenfranchised and empowering the most disenfranchised to become leaders of change.
An excellent example. You guys are both BetterWorldians, both you and Yolanda, for your participation in this wonderful endeavor. I commend you both. You can learn more about A Sense of Home by going to asenseofhome.org. Georgie and Yolanda, thank you both for joining us today on BetterWorldians Radio.
Thank you so much, Ray and Mary Sue.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. BetterWorldians Radio is brought to you by BetterWorldians Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to make the world a better place by encouraging the best in everyone. Essentially, we believe in planting flowers, not just pulling weeds. We focus on positive thinking, positive values, and positive actions. In short, our vision is to bring out the BetterWorldian in everybody so that we can all make it a better world. Go to BetterWorldians.com to become a part of this important mission. And until next time, be a better Worldian.